Hello everyone and welcome to Zelda Month, that 1 month of the year that we take to appreciate The Legend of Zelda, once started back in 2011 by Peanut Butter Gamer. Everyone who has ever played a Zelda game can at least form some sort of opinion, whether they absolutely love or hate the games. Many people grew up with The Legend of Zelda games, but what about those who didn't? Those who don't have the nostalgia glasses on? Like myself. I never really grew up with the Legend of Zelda games. The only one I can kind of see that for is Minish Cap. I played that a lot on my Game Boy as a kid, but other than Minish Cap, I never really played the Zelda games growing up. But what do those people who are not wearing those nostalgia glasses really think about the Legend of Zelda games? Well, that's what I'm here for today. I'm going to share with you guys my unpopular opinions on some of the Zelda games. Let's start off with one of the most recent Zelda games, Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was an absolute masterpiece to many people, winning over 160 different Game of the Year awards. But really, how good is this game? Well, I mean, it's really tough to determine what makes a great game. Is it the music, the gameplay, nostalgia, the story? I guess it really kind of depends on what type of person you are and what you're looking for in a game. Some people may want a game that's just really fun to play, but others like myself want a game with an enthralling story, and simply put, I think that's what Breath of the Wild really lacks, a good story. We start off the game waking up in a place called the Chamber of Resurrection, and shortly after we find out that 100 years ago there was a massive war and the land of Hyrule has fallen to the villain of the game, Calamity Ganon. Now, in present day, Link has no recollection of these events, probably due to some sort of amnesia, and you're now tasked with reawakening the Divine Beast to help defeat Calamity Ganon and to take back the land of Hyrule. As you progress and explore the fallen land of Hyrule, you come across key landmarks that help Link discover and remember what had happened 100 years ago in the war. This is, for the most part, how the game delivers parts of the stories and its cutscenes to you. They are all simply optional, so those who don't care about the story don't have to sit through it. However, if you're like me and love games with an enthralling story, then you won't be missing these. However, you may be a little bit let down, as there's only about an hour of cutscenes that explain the story to whatever story the game has. And well, it simply has hundreds of hours of gameplay. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but going into this game, it seemed like there would be an absolutely amazing story. At least the concept was really interesting, but simply put, I felt the story was very lackluster. It left me hungry for more that simply was not there. I mean, with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity now announced, I assume that this game will give me the story that I was so much craving in Breath of the Wild. It was a huge letdown to me, playing a game for hundreds of hours only to find out that the story was extremely lackluster. But the story is not the only lackluster thing in Breath of the Wild. The game's 4 main dungeons, the Divine Beasts, were undoubtedly the worst dungeons in the series. They all felt the same. The puzzles were all fairly simple. No new items to find, an awful atmosphere. I mean, look at all the dungeons. They're all the same exact brown, ugly color. No real mini-bosses, no chests, keys, or secrets to find. I guess all of that was put into the game's mini-dungeons called the Shrines, but I don't know, to me it just doesn't feel like a traditional Zelda game. I mean, you can argue the fact that, well, Breath of the Wild went back to the roots and recreated the original Zelda game and feel in a modern way. But even in the original Zelda game that had 8 dungeons, all with secret rooms, new items, hard puzzles, mini-bosses, keys, chests, and each dungeon had its own unique atmosphere to it. All the things that Breath of the Wild was lacking. However, aside from those small issues, Breath of the Wild is a great game for people simply looking for a game that has a really fun gameplay and an amazing world to explore and get lost in. Oh, you're still here watching the video? I'm surprised. Just make sure you don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because most people would have left by now after I just trashed one of the most critically praised games in the last 10 years. But aside from Breath of the Wild, What's the other game that has continuously been praised for the past 20 years? Oh yeah, Ocarina of Time. Trashing Breath of the Wild and now Ocarina of Time? Man, I can already see people hitting the dislike button. Well, anyways, let's just jump into this unpopular opinion. I think Ocarina of Time is slightly overrated, and, I think people are starting to come to realize that. About 5 to 10 years ago, you would get destroyed on the internet for not thinking Ocarina of Time was the greatest and best game ever created. But over time, I think people started to realize some of its flaws. I mean, for me personally, I don't think there is many flaws. The music is great, the dungeons are great, gameplay is fun. But Ocarina of Time has the same issues as Breath of the Wild for me. A lack of a good story. Now, whoa, hold on a minute, wait a second. Am I really saying Ocarina of Time doesn't have a good story? I mean, yeah, think of it like this. The game starts out really, really strong in my opinion. You're a boy with no fairy. You have nightmares about what is about to happen. You have a childhood friend, and one day you get a fairy just like all the other kids. You learn how and why you are different than all the other kids in the village. You're not like them. You're a human whose fate is to save the world from Ganon's demise. Well, I mean, you kind of don't do that. Ganon ends up taking over the world, and you're told that the only way to save the world is to travel to the future where you're older and stronger and gain help from the 7 sages. And this is where the game kind of falls apart. It starts off very strong up until the point where you become adult Link. Once you reach that half of the game, there's little to no story up until the very end of the game where you save Zelda. There is little to no story or cutscenes after each dungeon. Navi pretty much just says, oh, I feel a disturbance in Death Mountain, or maybe we should check out the Kokori Forest, or Zora's Domain, but that's about it. You just go collect the 7 Sage Emblems and beat Ganon. You learn just about all of the story in the first half of the game, and then bam, nothing after that. I mean, other than that, I think Ocarina of Time is a great game overall. It's just me being nitpicky, honestly. It just kind of bugs me when people say Ocarina of Time is better than Majora's Mask. I mean, sure, it has better music and maybe better dungeons, but the story and the items and even the gameplay, man, all of that is 100 times better in Majora's Mask. At least, the Nintendo 64 version of Majora's Mask, that is. When Ocarina of Time got a remake on the 3DS, fans were extremely excited, especially when we found out that it was made just like the original with very, very small or minimal changes. Fans were so happy. We begged Nintendo for 4 years for a Majora's Mask remake as well. However, those long 4 years was not really worth the wait, in my opinion. I mean, sure, the graphics are a bit better in the Majora's Mask 3DS remake, and we got enhanced controls like using the gyroscope, and you can skip time to a specific moment, and the camera, you can fully move it around. But they changed a lot of things that the fans like myself did not like. For example, Zora swimming, all of the bosses having the same weakness, and lastly, some odd changes like the twin mold fight. All of these new changes and features, while some were really good, others were, really not. And that's why I prefer the Nintendo 64 version better. Well, instead of just shitting all over good games, why don't we bring a bit of positivity into this video with The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword? A ton of people absolutely hate this game. And for what reason? The controls? I mean, yeah, sure, they are a bit gimmicky, and they can be a little bit difficult at times. But what else? The game can be a bit linear, or has some backtracking. Okay, sure, I can give it that. But you can't pretend that this isn't the only Zelda game with it. Link's Awakening has it, the Oracle games have it, hell, you can even consider Breath of the Wild to have it too. But aside from those minor flaws, what does Skyward Sword really have to offer as a Zelda game? Well, simply put, it's one of the best stories we have ever gotten in a Zelda game. Link and Zelda have been friends ever since they were little kids, and the relationship that they have in it is absolutely stronger than ever. So when the time comes where Zelda gets captured, it actually makes you care about saving the princess instead of just going, "Oh hey, yeah, Link, there's this girl named Zelda, and you know, you kind of gotta go and save her." Like, nah, dude, have some depth to it. Make me actually care about who I'm saving. Make it feel personal. This game really makes you care about the people of Skyloft. Groose, who kind of bullied you in the beginning of the game, and you end up hating him because of it, ends up completely turning his personality around and becomes someone who is caring and is there for others. Fledge, a small little shy weakling, ends up becoming strong and confident from you helping. There's so many examples of this in Skyward Sword. This game really has a good way of making you feel emotion for all of the characters. Not only do the people of Skyloft change, but the land changes as well. Farron Woods ends up being flooded, the Elden Volcano ends up erupting, the Lanayru Desert can be time traveled in. Every little part of this game has some sort of growth to it, even Link. As you progress through the game and acquire new skills, new items, and new friends to help you save Zelda. But who is behind it all? The main antagonist of the game, Girahim. He is such a weird yet evil and sinister character. He actually kind of pisses you off while also creeping you out in the same time. It's such a strange feeling. You continuously run into him after every few dungeons, and he ends up pissing you off even more each and every single time. It gives you so much more motivation to stop him and to crush him and save Zelda. You learn so much about the Zelda lore and universe throughout this game as well. It's the only game to actually explain to us the importance of Zelda, Link, how the land was created, the goddess Hylia, and so much more. It's actually incredible, but most people simply won't care or won't play it because of bad or gimmicky controls. It's quite a shame. But switching some gears from the Zelda console games to some of the handhelds, let's take a look at some of those. When discovering the Oracle games, I thought the concept for them was actually pretty interesting. I mean, two games that interconnected into each other to complete their full story was brilliant. The only thing we have seen similar to this was Pokemon Red and Blue, and that was just trading and battling. The stories never really intertwined or interconnected with each other. These were two completely different games, different world, different characters. Kind of a similar story, but not really. Each was different due to the corresponding game mechanics. For Oracle of Ages, it was a bit simple. You time traveled, you had a time travel mechanic where you can go back in time. Wherein the Oracle of Seasons, well, you could change the seasons. To add a little bit more background to this game, the Oracle of Seasons was going to focus more on combat. But how so? I mean, it's a 2D game. There's only so much combat ideas you can do with a 2D game. I mean, sure, you got new items and new companions and whatnot, but that really wasn't enough to make it a combat-oriented game. At least in my opinion. Oracle of Ages was to be a bit more puzzle-focused and orientated. Using the time travel mechanic to solve different puzzles ended up working out really well in its favor. When I had first found out about the Oracle of Seasons mechanics, I thought it was brilliant. I mean, seriously, what kind of game allows you to change the seasons on command? It's been about 20 years and we have still yet to see a game where you can do that. So I thought that this was going to be amazing, a concept never seen before in a game, and better yet, it's in a Zelda game. But actually, Oracle of Seasons disappointed me quite a bit, and simply because the seasons mechanic was a letdown. Players can easily change the season by standing on a sump and swinging the Rod of Seasons, but doing so doesn't really do much or change anything other than a palette swap. I mean, sure, there's a couple little things here and there that'll change, like in winter, for example, the trees will die down, opening up new paths, or in spring, flowers will bloom and you can use them to reach new heights, but that's about it. It felt very, again, lackluster in my opinion. I was so hyped up for the cool new mechanic, but again, it was just a major letdown. To wrap up the Oracle games, both are really great games, but Ages is by far better than Seasons. Most people tend to skip these titles, but they were good and unique in their own way, and again, for the time, the technology and concepts used in these games were amazing. Moving on to another handheld title, I think the Minish Cap is not only the best Zelda handheld game, but one of the best games in a franchise. I know earlier in the start of the video I said I do have a little bit of nostalgia for this game, so you can kind of take that into consideration, but let's take a really quick and fast look at this game. The story in this game is kind of similar to Skyward Sword in the sense that Link and Zelda being friends ever since they were kids. Again, this is great because it actually makes me want to care for her instead of her just being some random ass princess. Second, this game has a pretty damn good story for what it is, and as you go throughout the game, you learn more and more about Vaati, the main villain, and Ezlo, your partner in crime, and how Vaati used to be Ezlo's student and turned him into, well, whatever the hell Ezlo is now. But not only does the game have a pretty good story, but has plenty of side quests, secrets, a killer soundtrack, absolutely amazing art style, and a surprisingly good mechanic that's implemented extremely well and does not feel gimmicky whatsoever. I feel as if this game does not get as much credit as it deserves because it's, well, simply it's a handheld game. I mean, to be fair, the handheld games that come after Minish Cap were probably some of the worst games in the series, and I think that's all I really need to say about them. Well, that's about all I got for you guys today. If you like this video, make sure you leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to be updated whenever I upload future videos. Make sure you join the Discord as well so you can come hang out with me, talk to me, and tell me what your unpopular Zelda opinions are. You could also leave some comments down below letting me know which ones you agreed with or disagreed with. And also let me know if you guys want me to review or give some unpopular opinions on other Zelda games. I know I've only covered about half of them or a couple of them in this video, but if you want to see me cover the other half or a specific Zelda title, make sure you leave a comment down below and let me know, because I have played every single Zelda game, at least for the most part. I think I'm missing like Four Swords Adventures or something like that. But anyways, yeah, if you want to leave a comment down below and be like, hey, I really want to see you talk about you know, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, for example, let me know. I'll make sure to do a video on that. Well, with all that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day today.